Our first speaker is Aris Kardasiradis, and he's from Greece. And he's been working to eliminate human trafficking for a decade. And he pioneered in Greece several key initiatives, such as a law enforcement training program, a legal aid protocol, and several awareness campaigns to tackle the refugee crisis in Greece. In his speech, he will present one of his most recent projects, the Race for Freedom.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I just have a warning for everyone. Don't blink. Don't fall asleep. You may be very confused by the end of this, okay? So, my name is Aris. I come from Greece. And I'm going to speak to you about Race for Freedom, which is a communication project we just recently did. But let me preface this by saying that in all these years of fighting human trafficking, I have grown to have an appreciation about the topic and the element of awareness. Because as much as I get moved when I see victims rescued and restored and going forward in their lives, all the more I realize that this is just a band-aid in an internal bleeding situation, if we fail to activate our community. If we want to see a world that is intolerant to human rights violations, we need to find effective ways in getting our message out there to the people who are the community. So I'm here today to speak to you about the Race for Freedom. And just to give you a picture of what it is so we can establish some common ground, why don't we go and watch a short highlights video. Now, as the video speaks for itself, I will not take more time to explain what we did. I think it's obvious. We raced at the Greek championship. I would like to spend more time discussing why we did what we did, and what was the process of maturity we went through to actually be able to see value in something like this. Because you have to admit, it's kind of weird out there thing. Like, is that the best way you can do awareness in human trafficking, racing motorcycles? So let me take you back to the beginning, where the beginning was for me. In 2014, in November, the phone in our hotline rang, and it was a man on the other side who said, I just came out of a brothel in Athens, and I'm calling because I think that woman there is there against her will. I noticed that she was a little bit unwilling. She was just staring at the floor. She seemed uncomfortable. She was definitely inexperienced. She didn't seem like she belonged there. So I'm just calling to send the police there to check it out. An hour later, he even went home, he went online, he found an ad for the specific brothel and shared it with us, just so the police doesn't miss the specific one because there were so many brothels on that street. The girl was rescued. And then a week or two later, I'm sitting at the anti-trafficking headquarters in Athens with the officer, and we're going through the case and we're discussing it, and I noticed for the first time that link he shared, there was a space there for customer reviews. And I traced the most recent one, and I found the review of a guy who was just in that brothel, and he left a 2-page comment documenting his experience, which was same thing, but very different. The girl, she is a terrible prostitute, waste of money. She didn't know how to do X and Y sexual acts. She didn't even smile. She didn't even fake it. She didn't even make me feel good. Waste of money. Don't go there. Terrible, terrible experience. Now, before we go on and crucify that man, let's look at some facts that I think are very significant. Both of these men are regular brothel goers. Both of these men slept with this woman, and both of them saw very specific signs. And both of them took time out of their day to go do something about it. But just based on the level of awareness that they had and their interpretation of those signs, one of them led to her rescue and the other one left her there helpless. Now, let's go crucify that man, right? He's probably a terrible human being. He represents everything that's wrong with humanity, right? He sees women as objects to his satisfaction, right? He's probably a perverted, sick person. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe he's just plain ignorant. Or maybe he is a pervert. But human trafficking is not the second most profitable crime in the world because of the number of perverts out there that are willing to go and sleep with enslaved women. It's the average everyday Joes that are customers of sexual services, whether it's prostitution or escort services or strip clubs or whatever it may be, that generate the high profits, that demand that causes that supply of trafficked women. And the sad thing is these guys are unaware and unequipped to deal with this and to identify victims. Now, it is estimated that in Greece there is 1 million customers, 1 million regular customers, responsible for 18 million purchases of sex annually. At the same time, only 2% of the victims are rescued, and only 2% of the victims rescued, that's 0.0004%, is rescued with the assistance of customers. But on the other side, we have 100% of the victims coming in contact with customers every week. That instance changed my perspective of how I see the customers and how, to me now, they actually represent an opportunity for a rescue. 1 million customers is 1 million opportunities for rescues if we're able to bring awareness to them. Now, a couple of years later, I'm riding my motorcycle from Thessaloniki to Sofia, Bulgaria. It's about a 4-hour ride. And on the way there, I stopped just before the Bulgarian borders at the gas station. The guy at the pump, he's a biker. So we engage in a very macho and manly conversation about how fast our bikes are, how strong we are, how fast we are, what crazy things we've done on bikes. You know, you can imagine the rest of it, right? I go on to tell him that I'm planning to test the max speed of my bike on the new Bulgarian highway, whoever has done that highway before. And he goes on to tell me that there is increased traffic control, to which I shamefully, regretfully, reply that, well, it's Bulgaria. I'll pay 20 euros to the police officers and just continue my way. I'm ashamed of this. But my heart rate rose instantly at his response. He said, why pay 20 bucks to the cops, man? You're going to Bulgaria. You can buy 2 girls for that money. I was shocked. I was stunned. I sharply ended the conversation. I got on my bike and just continued my way. But this wouldn't leave me alone, because the thing that captivated me the most was that he didn't know me for 5 minutes. He didn't know if I was a cop or a flight attendant. All he knew was that I was a Greek male biker. And that was enough for him to render it appropriate to bring a comment like this to me. And it's just moments like this that give you a good snapshot of where our culture and subcultures are really at. There was another thing that struck me in that conversation, though, because it stayed with me for months. I would just keep processing it. And I realized that in my vast experience of trainings and speeches and conferences and field data and you name it on human trafficking, I did not have the language and the ability to use these 2 minutes at the pump and convert that person and educate him on human trafficking and win him over without coming across judgmental or alienating him or even penalizing him for not knowing. At the end of the day, he grew up in Greece, and 9 times out of 10, in a biker's group, if he said that comment, he would get at least a couple of laughs or a nod of agreement. I took it as a personal challenge from then on. I decided that every time I meet a biker, I will bring up my profession early up in the conversation. If for nothing else, just so they don't find appropriate to make comments like that, or if they do, then they know they're signing themselves up for a lecture on the modern face of human trafficking in Greece. And I really did that. I really took it on board, and I started really investigating the biking culture and trying to figure out, how to break that message to them. And I realized I started coming up with the words, and I started coming up with how to effectively communicate with them. I also found out why there is such ignorance in that group. I discovered that that group has a high density in regular customers. but also has an extreme ignorance on what it really means, what human trafficking really is today in Greece. And there were specific reasons for that. In this subculture, NGOs are an evil hand of politics, and they have their own agendas, and that's what they're driving. So you won't find these groups around NGO conferences and human rights day seminars and all that stuff. And also, they just don't want to hear from those bunch of feminists that always exaggerate the gender issues and all that. They don't trust that too. In other words, they don't trust our perspective or the purity of our motives. But I realized something else. I realized that when I would talk to them at a coffee shop where we would be watching the race, and or at the racetrack where we were wearing tight leather suits and chasing the same adrenaline rush that they do. I ruined this button before, so I'm just gonna imagine this much smoother. All right? So when I talk to them in those settings, they actually were able to identify with me. And they opened up. They started talking to me about their experience and where they have encountered human trafficking before. They congratulated me for my work. They told me that they will call 1109 if they hear anything about it. And they actually did call again to give me information in the cities or stuff that happened. And that's where the Race for Freedom idea actually started making sense. You see, we don't race to win the championship. We race to earn the trust and respect of the bikers. And we invite them to participate in a movement of people just like them that are actually trying to change the world to the better. So we took that leap of faith and we made that assumption and we went to the races and we invited the bikers to come and we did awareness, like we just talked to them in the briefings of the race and we were astounded at the response. Some of the most famous bikers of Greece, the 10 times Greek champion, 3 other class champions in the different classes of the sport, they came to become, and they offered to become spokespersons and to film PSAs, which then we launched on social media, and we were able to launch a campaign that they are actually talking to their followers and to the bikers of Greece, saying a very, very simple message. If you see something, call 1109. Don't be afraid to report it. You can call anonymously. Be part of the Race for Freedom.
Είμαι ο Σάκης Σιλιώρης. Είμαι ο Θωμάς Βοσκουρδάς. Βασίλης Ρούσης. Καρδασιλάρης Άρης. Είμαι ο Μπαρτζόκας Ευστάθιος. Ο Τότσος Καψιλιάνδου. Ο Κορονάκης. Είμαι ο Κυριάκος Λιώτας και αγωνίζομαι στην κατηγορία νέων. Superbike. Open. Racing. Νέων. S300. Αν γνωρίζεις, πεις ή ακούσεις οποιοδήποτε ύποπτο περιστατικό εμπορίας ανθρώπων, κάνεις ανώνυμα την 1109. Πάρε και εσύ μέρος στον αγώνα για την ελευθερία.
We're now fundraising and we're trying to get in the race again next year and join 3 out of the 6 races and actually be able to go to Athens, which is the biggest race. And in the years to come, we actually want to take that to the Balkan Championship. So we can go to the countries of origin of victims that we find in Greece and partner with local NGOs there to do awareness on preventing people from being trafficked or equip them with how can they escape or seek help should they find themselves trafficked in Greece or elsewhere. Now,